Tell us about what's going on on Friday, the Griak 37th year. It's been a long time coming with how many years we've been doing this. What are you excited about?
Yeah, the meet's always an exciting meet. It's, we try to treat Griak like it's a football game day, so we want to make it exciting. We want to make it kind of a celebration of cross country as a whole. So we're excited. We're obviously excited for our team and our team's race. We kick off the day with the D1 fields at 10 and 10:45. Probably two of the best fields we've had at the Griak in the last 10 years. Some podium teams from last year's national meet on the women's side, some really good competition on the men's side. So we're excited to see where our team stacks up against a lot of really good national caliber competition, and hopefully come out of it a little bit smarter and a little bit tougher, and going into the rest of the season. It's still pretty early in the season. We're still in September, but it's still a pretty important weekend for us from a performance standpoint to get some good races under our belt.
Give us a little synopsis of how things have gone, both for the men and women up to this point.
Yeah, we've only had two kind of little, rust busters is the wrong word, but two little meets so far. We hosted a meet, the Oz Memorial. We kind of used that as a little bit of a workout. But we went to Wisconsin 2 weeks ago for a Big Ten preview. We're going to be racing at Wisconsin for Big Tens at the end of October, so they host a meet. On the women's side, it was a very deep meet, actually. There was 4 nationally ranked teams there. We got 4th overall, and a solid race for us. I think some really good things happened, but some kids maybe didn't run quite as well as they were capable of, so I think we know we can run a little bit better. The men actually won that meet, which was pretty fun and exciting for them. A lot of new guys in uniform, their first travel meet, their first kind of bigger meet against bigger competition. It was great to get a win. I think we, again, on the men's side, know that there's still more to be done, and guys can run a little bit better even. So hopefully we kind of tweak a few of those things going into Griak, and both teams run a little bit better. And because of the competition at Griak, we're going to need to. If we run the same way we did, we're going to get beat by a lot of teams. So we got to kind of step up to the competition, and I think both teams are ready to do that, and both teams are excited to see a more national caliber field and see really where we stack up.
The Griak's always kind of cool, too, because it involves small college and high school still, is that right?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Take me through how big of a day that makes it.
Yeah, it's a 10-race day, so we've got 4 college races, so the Division I races kick things off, and then we've got a D2, D3 combined race next for men and women, and then we have like a little mini lunch break, and then we start the high school races. And honestly, from a national prevalence standpoint, the high school races might be the premiere of the day in some ways, the D1 races and then the high school races. We have a championship race for both boys and girls, and then we have a maroon and gold race. So we've got 6 high school races. Each of those races has 40 teams, so there's 120 high school teams. So about 1,200 high school runners will be out there on both genders. So it'll be a very fun and exciting day for those teams, I know, and they look forward to some national level competition as well. We've got teams from the Midwest, but we also have teams from Colorado and California and Florida and Georgia, all over the country. So it's really fun to host those teams here at the high school level, and for our high school kids from Minnesota and from the surrounding states to see a really high caliber competition before they get to the postseason. And they get to race against, in Minnesota now there's 3 classes, but we don't divide it by class. We divide it by capability. So there's 1A schools or 1A programs that race against 3A programs that at the state meet they won't get to race. So for some of those smaller schools, the Griak's actually almost like a bigger race than state, because they get to see all these different competition levels, where at state, it's just the smaller schools racing against each other. So for the Perms of the world and people like that are very, very competitive, it's fun for them to get to kind of race up and race against some really, really high level competition.
So how is the week for you as you have to get your own team ready, but there's all these teams coming in as the host? Do you have a busy schedule?
Yeah, I kind of equate it to a wedding. There's a lot of stuff that we do a year in advance, so we start planning for the 2024 Griak, on Sunday. So there's a lot of stuff that's just kind of a dull roar throughout the regular year, and then there's sort of this hurry up and wait, because there's a bunch of stuff we can do in the summer, and then we just have to wait. And so today is kind of the ready, set, go day, because entries closed last night. So now we have 4,000 bibs to be had and packets to be stuffed and race assignments to do and all that stuff that we really can't get ahead on until today. So today and tomorrow are pretty hectic. But then Wednesday, Thursday is kind of just the fun part, getting out to the course and setting up the course and seeing teams come in. And that's where it's, again, kind of fun, because you get to see colleagues and see coaches from around the country that you don't get to see very often, and see all these high school kids coming and being so excited for the event and taking pictures. And that's the rewarding part, is kind of seeing everyone and seeing faces light up when they walk in and see how cool the event is and things like that, or teams that are coming for the first time. So it's a lot. And we obviously have to kind of remind ourselves every now and again that we are still trying to coach our own teams and not kind of let them get lost in the shuffle of the event. But it is kind of a labor of love. Coach Wick and I both knew Griak well and ran at Griak in high school and things like that. So we wouldn't do it any other way, but it is a lot. It makes you appreciate next weekend we go to Notre Dame and you just get to go and race and go home. You don't have to do any of the setup. You don't have to do any of the organization. It makes travel, you kind of appreciate the away meets a little bit more after you host. So.
What about the challenging part? I know a lot of people talk about the course being a tough course. What makes it tough that for people that might not know, and why do people still like coming to a tough course like that?
Yeah, the golf course is great because it is, it's just never really flat. There's no monster hills. There's no, you see some courses that have these just grinder hills. There's maybe a little bit of one at the 3K, but really the challenge is that it just never flattens out. So you never kind of get a break. There's no mile of flat, or there's no really kind of long gradual downhills to kind of recover. It just kind of keeps coming at you. And so you really have to run it smart. Early on it doesn't feel that bad because again there's nothing big, but it just adds up over time and it keeps adding up and it keeps adding up and it keeps coming at you. So I think that's what makes it challenging, especially for high school kids, because high school, most of their races are around soccer fields or at their high school or, in sort of groomed golf courses that are a little bit flatter. And so they make it a little bit easier for the high school kids. And this is the first time they see a course like this. For college teams, we see it a little bit more regularly. The Oklahoma State's a kind of a similar course. Our course is kind of similar. There's probably 4 or 5 in the country that everybody kind of knows are grinders. But I think people like it. It's the right time of year, when you get into sort of training philosophy and kind of runner nerd things. This is the time of year that you want courses like this because it is going to get you stronger. It is going to get you tougher. Courses you go to after this will feel easier, which is kind of a nice mental game for teams. But really, we're still conditioning at this time of year. Every race is training. And so when you get a race in like this, you're getting hill work, you're getting tempo work, you're getting a lot of different stuff that you wouldn't get from a flat course. So I think a lot of coaches, especially when you think about the D1, D2 programs that are preparing to be ready in November, kind of like the fact that they're going to come in and have to grind a little bit because it's just good training for their athletes. And I think from a mental game too, you come in and the times really don't mean much. They're not that fast. They're not going to be super fast times. And then you get that joy of going through the season and running faster and faster as you go, which obviously is a good emotional boost for your team, where if you run a super flat course early and these kids run super fast and then they come to Griak, they think the sky is falling because they ran slower, and you have to fight this mental battle where if you can kind of keep them challenged early and let them naturally evolve through the season and their times kind of naturally keep getting faster, it just makes them feel more confident that they're improving.
How about the namesake of this long-time event? What do you remember about Roy?
Oh gosh, so many things. I think, I was just talking to Justin Gard, and Roy was just one of a kind, and I think so many things made Roy one of a kind, but he was kind of that one of one that coached for forever. He was a lifer. When he finished coaching, he stayed in this building. He came to work every day. I was telling Gardsy, every day he would get out his Rolodex, which people that are younger than us don't know what a Rolodex is, but he would get out his Rolodex and it had all of the alumni that ever ran for him in there, and he would call 2 or 3 guys every day and just check in on them. Hey, how's it going? How's the family? And coaches people don't do that anymore. Not even just coaches, but just people, right? And maybe you get a text or maybe you get an email or a mass email from your alma mater about fundraising or something, but Roy called every guy. And if Roy needed something, those guys would do anything to help Roy. And so I think just that kind of old school mentality of, it's about the athletes, it's about the people. And at Griak, he loved the event, not because it was named after him. He actually didn't love that part of it, but he loved just sitting in a cart and watching the high school races and watching like the 300th kid crossing the finish line. And he'd look at us and go, man, that kid's not very talented, but they're tough, and that you can just tell, like, they're grinding, and they might not be the most talented kid on the planet, but I love watching that kid race because the talented ones it's sometimes easy for because they get to win. These kids out there in 300th place are just out there because they love the sport and they're grinding, and he always talked about being snotty-nosed tough, and that's kind of what cross country is like. And so that's what was the kind of the favorite part for him of the day was watching some of those kids that you could tell just have a passion for the sport, and the sport's probably not going to take them to crazy places, but they just love it. And I think that's what he loved, and that kind of came through in the way he treated people, and he didn't just shake hands with the winner and walk away. Like, he watched every kid cross that finish line, and he would take pictures with all those kids, and he would do all that stuff because he loved the sport, and he loved giving back, because he started coaching high school too at St. Louis Park, and and a bunch of those high school coaches he coached. His coaching tree was pretty crazy at the college level, but also at the high school level in the state. So many people that coached in the state for a long time ran for Roy, so that was really special for him, I think.
Last one for me, in terms of, it's always dangerous to ask this type of a question, but who are some of the athletes that, if both the men's and women's team want to be where they want to be, that will be producers for you?
Yeah, for sure. I think we have a little more savvy group on the women's side. They were very young last year. We're still young on paper, but they all raced last year. So you kind of our big names, Allie Weimer. I think people that follow cross country know Allie. She was probably one of the best kids in the history of the state in cross country. She was Big Ten Freshman of the Year last year in cross country, and so she's certainly a key piece for us. Our kind of number 2, 3, 4 is a little bit by committee right now, but Taylor Kreitner has been a great story. Was a soccer kid in high school, never ran cross country in high school, and now was our number 1 runner at Wisconsin last week, and was a Big Ten scorer in the steeplechase last spring, and has done a great job of developing. And then Emma Atkinson was a kid from Wayzata High School, pretty deep tradition there at Wayzata. And then Aaron Reedy is an 800 kid for us, is a 204 800 meter runner who has now kind of figuring out cross country and learning and growing through cross. And then Breanne Brewster from Lakeville is another one that's a big piece for us. So I'd say that kind of 5 on the women's side. And on the men's side, we are really, really young. We've got a lot of guys that redshirted last year. Our number 1 guy last week at Wisconsin was Shane Greipenthrog, who just put on a uniform for the first time, and is a super talented kid out of Wisconsin. So we're excited to see how he continues to build. But kind of, I think our foundational pieces on the men's side are Eli Haft, who's a Hopkins kid, who's a 5th year for us this year. And then Noah Coat-Jackson had a great year last year for us as a transfer, and was a steeplechase scorer last spring, and will I think be a big piece for us this fall. And then a bunch of younger guys. Emmett Anderson scored for us last year in the 10K on the track, and he's a junior but sophomore eligibility, who had a big year for us last year. And then Dan Van Acker, a bunch of these younger guys that are getting on a uniform for the first time. And we'll have some lumps, I'm sure, but we'll have some great days as well. And it's, like I said, a little more of a mystery on the men's side, but we'll learn more and more every race. I think the women, we kind of know who we need and who's going to be up there, and more of a mystery of just who could put it together on the day.
Great.
That's all I needed.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Thanks.